Hold up.
Every day I wake up, wake your ass up.
The Breakfast Club.
Y'all finished or y'all done?
Yep, it's the world's most dangerous morning show, The Breakfast Club. Charlamagne the God, DJ Envy, and Jess Hilarious on here, but Loren LoRosa is, and we got a special guest. She goes by the name of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett.
What's going on?
How are you?
I'm making it.
How you feeling?
It's tough. It's a tough time. It's a tough time in this country for all people in
Absolutely.
general, but obviously as someone who isn't afraid to speak her mind, our country is truly falling apart, and it is devolving into next level chaos as well as next level violence.
I hate to say it, you were one of the first people that I thought about after I saw what happened with Charlie Kirk, because you know I don't want that to happen to anybody. I don't think anybody should be killed because of their opinion or attacked because of their opinion. And you know what happens over there definitely will happen, you know, on this side. Yeah. And that definitely makes somebody like you a target.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many people that immediately reached out from all over and was like, what is going on with your security? Like, we need to make sure that you're good. Like, are you somewhere safe? And I had to make sure that I called my mom because I knew that my mom would just want to hear my voice. It really shouldn't be that way. And we now are engaging in conversations again about the safety or lack thereof for elected officials that are in Congress. I mean, I have to pay for my own security. Like, so I have to raise money to keep myself safe because they will not pay to take care of us, even though the other two branches of government, they pay for their protection. So, you know, hopefully we can engage in some real conversations around what it looks like to get us some real safety. But also we need to engage in like what really does cross the line, right? Like, so we do have free speech in this country. But are you free to say just any and everything, right? Like, I mean, there are limits to all of our constitutional protections, as well as, like, what kind of standard are we going to hold ourselves to when you are sitting, say, in the Oval Office or, you know, in the House? Like, how far will you go? And so, you know, I hate that some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle immediately came out and they were like, oh, you know, this is on the Democrats. Like, we don't even know who did what. And y'all are like, this is on the Democrats, right? Like, I mean, obviously, the first thing that, you know, anybody would say, and you didn't have any Democrat that went out there and said otherwise, is like, we're denouncing political violence. But we're just assuming, like, and we just want to be clear, like, that we're not down for political violence, but that doesn't mean that that's what it was, right? Like, we know that people, especially me, having done criminal defense, most offenses like this were personal in the first place. Now, I'm not saying that this was a personal thing, but I'm saying, like, the fact that this can't be personal is wild, right? Like the fact that they are presuming that this is somebody that came from our side of the aisle. We know that in
That's
the two,
dangerous. That's very dangerous.
It is dangerous. It is dangerous. And even still, even if it came from our side of the aisle, let's assume the worst. Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about what quote unquote radicalized him, right? Like we've seen writings and manifestos, and we've seen where it looks like the two people that went after the president before he was the president had ties to the Republican Party. Like they had not voted Democratic. They were registered as Republicans. Like, so let's talk about it. We know that there were members of Congress that left the House last session because they received threats, not from liberals. They received threats from MAGA because literally they would not vote for the MAGA candidate to become Speaker of the House. So we've got to talk about like what it means when you're running for president or you're running for one of these higher offices and you go out there and you talk about beating people up. You go out there and you say things like, I could shoot somebody in the middle of the street in New York and I could still win. We got to talk about like that. That is next level. Me disagreeing with you, me calling you, you know, I want to be Hitler. All those things are like, not necessarily saying go out and hurt somebody, but when you're literally telling people at rallies, yeah, beat them up and that kind of stuff, like you are promoting like a culture of violence. So we need to talk about like what it looks like when you don't promote a culture of violence.
I mean, the funny part is, it's not funny, but both sides of the aisle do it. So it's like, you know, they'll get on y'all for, you know, saying that, hey, we called them wannabe Hitler, blah, 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 but they call Democrats fascists.
They call us socialists. They call us all things. But I don't think that actually evokes an environment of violence. I think literally saying things about like, oh, these people don't deserve to live, or the images of what we're seeing right now as ICE is going into communities and dragging people and kicking them and taking them down to the ground and busting windows out. Like that is we have never seen these types of images of ICE, right? Or the idea that you had people that went in on January 6th and they literally beat law enforcement. We had people that died, and on day one, and they were convicted. We're talking about over 1,000 people arrested. We're talking about convictions that they either pled to or they went to trial and they were found guilty. And some of them got 20 years or so. And then on day one, you say, let them go. And we know that since those people have been let go, that at least one got caught up for a murder plot. Another one ended up with a reckless homicide. Another one ended up with child porn. We know that at least 10 of them ended up with new cases for doing other things. And so it's like we have the criminal that I would call injustice system. But the idea is supposed to be that, like, you know, you do bad, we gonna put you up so that people maybe will be deterred from doing bad. But it's almost like bad behavior is being rewarded. And if, like, the worst that I can say is, like, that I understand history that you're trying to take out of, like, the schools, and that the balance of power is out of balance, and that you are operating as a dictator by invoking quote unquote emergency powers illegally, consistently, that you are constantly violating the Constitution. These are just facts. That doesn't mean that I want somebody to go out and hurt the president of the United States. In fact, when those attempts took place in a bipartisan way, we voted to raise the amount of money that is allowed and allotted to protect him. So no, I can say that your policies are bad. I can say you're a criminal because you have been found guilty of 34 convictions. Like, I can say all these things because they are true. That's not even just free speech. These are just facts. So don't get mad that I speak the truth and I speak facts, but I literally have never said anything to invoke violence. And I challenge somebody to go and find a clip of a Democrat invoking violence. Right now, everybody's gotten so sensitive. I woke up and a friend sent me a text message where somebody else had been fired for repeating Charlie Kirk's words, right? Like, they're firing people and they're canceling people because people have gone out and looked at some of the things that he said. I'm going to be honest. I never said a word about Charlie Kirk. Like, he wasn't on my radar. Like, I don't go and follow the right wing special people. Like, I don't. Like, it's just not, I got other things to do. And some of my friends who had never heard of him were like, let's dig, let's figure, who is he, right? Because people are like, this is coming up on our feed and we don't know what's going on. We don't know who it is. And literally, I didn't know he had ever talked about me. And I guess it was recently, but like, I had never seen it. I had never paid attention to it, whatever. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where we got to get to. But I think ever talking about who should die, ever saying who should be beat up, ever saying who doesn't deserve to live, you know, taking people and throwing them in cages to the extent that they're literally dying. I mean, we've had more in custody deaths as it relates to ICE. We're on record to hit a record for that. And so, like, are we going to have these real conversations? On that same day, we had kids that were shot again
in Colorado
at another school. Right. And there's been no conversation around those kids. And the thing is, what did they do wrong? Nothing. They showed up to school. That's what happened with them, right? And so, you know, we've got to talk about the culture of guns in this country and what it looks like to truly understand what the Second Amendment stands for. And it doesn't mean that everybody got to be the Wild Wild West. And now, can we have a conversation about everybody having guns doesn't necessarily prevent gun violence?
I was going to ask you, do you think now we'll see some change in gun reform and all the things since it's happening on the other side?
No. I mean, it has become to the extent that people worship their weapons.
I said that yesterday. Yeah.
And it's crazy, right? Like, I mean, and we're not talking about, you know, they always want to say if Democrats talk about gun reform, they're like, oh, they taking your guns. And I'm like, yo, I'm licensed to carry.
Same.
I'm licensed and I got guns, right? And this, you know, goes back to my days of doing criminal defense. So, like, yes, I know how to shoot. You know, obviously, I never want to have to shoot.
Can we stay there for a second? Because you said a lot, but I want to stay there for a second. Please explain to people, because I believe in the Second Amendment too. When we talk about common sense gun reform, what does that look like?
Yeah, so
we're not trying to take. Nobody wants to take guns away.
No, nobody's trying to take your guns away. So we can talk about the fact that they are currently seemingly struggling a little bit as it relates to the Charlie Kirk shooting in general, right? Because they're trying to figure out who bought what. Like, this is about simple things like you can't buy it, unless there is a background check. You can't buy it unless, like, we literally have you documented on that weapon. And we have so many ways for weapons to get into people's hands, and it's not documented. And so in this particular circumstance, it clearly isn't clear. The dude left the weapon. It should be as simple as, this belongs to such and such. Same thing with our cars, right? Like, we get tagged with our cars. You see what I'm saying? Even if you decide, I'm going to sell it to my cousin down the street, what do you got to do? Register it. He got to get a license on it, right? So, like, they don't even want to close, like, the gun show loophole so that we can at least know who it is that is supposed to have this weapon. And then you end up in a circumstance like this, which obviously, it's too late. But at the same time, if you're going to prevent other tragedies from happening, you can do it a lot quicker if you can literally just track the weapon. Like, that's it. Like, that's a very simple thing to talk about. And then obviously the background checks, we want them because some people have been classified as not being mentally stable. So don't come at us after the fact and be like, oh, it's mental health.
Right.
Well, bro, like, if a court has already deemed that, why should we be giving this person a firearm? Like, we should have to have background checks on everybody that's getting a firearm from anybody. So it's just very simple stuff. Like, that's it. Like,
I feel like if there isn't a shift in gun laws after, the mass shootings we saw this week, after the shooting of Charlie Kirk, then Republicans really need to do some soul searching. And the reason I say that, when you heard Charlie Kirk himself say a couple of deaths here and there, it's worth it to keep our Second Amendment rights. I always wonder, that's easy to say, but what about when that death is you, or when that death is somebody that you love? And then the fact that he was actually talking about gun violence when he got shot. If y'all believe in God like y'all say y'all do, Republicans, it's time to have a real conversation, because if that's not a sign, I don't know what is.
No, I mean, it is, I wondered if that had something to do with it, because I was like, how in the heck did he get shot in the moment that he was talking about gun violence? Like, he was literally answering questions about gun violence. But I do think that it is time for them to say, we can have a conversation about gun reform and it not be the end of the world. And one of those things that I really think, Kash Patel is actually supposed to come before my Judiciary Committee here shortly, I think next week maybe, and we'll see if it ends up getting pushed off with everything that's going on. But I do want to ask, like, would it be helpful if everyone was required to have something so that we can track these guns, like anything, you know what I mean? Because not being able to pick up that firearm and say it belongs to this person and be done and be like, we about to go get that person because this is who it belongs to. Now, granted, I don't know what information they had on that firearm, if anything. And this is not even getting into ghost guns. We ain't even talking about that, right? Like, let's just talk about, like, the basics and who can be held liable. And the gun lobby is just very strong. The gun lobby is like, we here for it. You know what I mean? Like, guns go wild. Like, they just want to sell. But at what point in time do we evaluate and say, how much is too much? And when are we going to make some changes? And I don't know, but hopefully we can have a real conversation. But I honestly don't think that it should take someone that you value their life more than you value, innocent children or whatever, before we can have a real conversation.
The gun lobbyists are the reason that Congress has failed to deliver on
Oh, absolutely. Right? Absolutely. That's one of the main reasons that, they haven't, right? And I do applaud those, local law enforcement agencies that are doing like gun buybacks and things like that and really trying to pull guns off the streets. That is so helpful. We have seen gun violence be reduced when you have your local law enforcement that are doing those programs. But they can't stop the gun violence by themselves. Like, they're trying to do something because state and federal government is not doing anything. And I think we really should have a real conversation, but I think we should have a real conversation after any senseless gun violence takes place. And unfortunately, we've not been able to have that conversation. So we'll see if we can engage now. But right now, I think the focus is just on how do we figure out who it is that committed this heinous offense And where do we go? How do we prevent it, number one, from happening to somebody else? What is our responsibility, those of us that are in higher office and have these big microphones? And third of all, is there any policy fixes that could hopefully also prevent some of this from happening?
Yeah, what I want to know what policy changes or even like enhanced security protocol you think is necessary for, public political events after something like this.
Yeah, so it's interesting because as I was waiting to come in, someone was telling me that one of his security advisors had actually recently, maybe within the last month, said that they need to make sure that he's actually got like bulletproof, like a plexiglass of sorts.
One of Charlie Kirk's
advisors? Yes,
wow.
Yes. Supposedly that happened. I haven't read up, but literally, one of my staffers as I was coming in. So I think that, number one, a lot of us talked about this weekend and the fact that it may be dangerous for us to be out. It's always dangerous for us to be out. But if you've got like outdoor rallies and things like that, that maybe like cancel them, because even now, again, on social media or otherwise, I had never uttered Charlie Kirk's name, but my staff has been enduring all types of threats in our office to the extent that they are increasing the policing around the places that I live right now. And it's like, how am I like in this? Like I ain't got,
because you're one of the most high profile, outspoken, controversial public figures on the left.
But she had nothing to do with that shooting.
But
it don't matter. If somebody was looking to get some get back, that's what they would. That's who they would.
That's kind of like what happened at the HBCU campuses.
Correct. And that's the thing. It's like, first of all, black people ain't had nothing to do with this. We wasn't nowhere near Utah. So I'm like, how was the response to go after black students? And it's interesting because I was talking to one of my best friends who graduated from Grambling. And I was like, is Grambling on lockdown? Because, like, it was just kind of, like, in the moment. And it's like we're getting these alerts about this school and that school, Hampton, and all these different schools. So I was like, what is happening? And I was like, and why are we in this, right? Like, what is it that students on a HBCU campus have to do with this, right? Like, that wasn't a place that... Let me point this out. We have had school shootings that have taken place on all types of campuses. And there are those, specifically on the right, that always want to put out this idea that black folk are dangerous and criminal, and we just have more of a propensity to commit crimes and things like that. Do you know how many school shootings we've had at a HBCU?
Zero.
One of the safest campus that you can be, a safe haven. And it is interesting because those campuses were created out of kind of this segregation idea. But we don't do that. It's not, in the idea that, as soon as it happened and the next thing you know, the trans community is under attack again, right? Because they said that the Minnesota shooting was a trans woman, I believe. And so because it was a trans person, they're like, oh, this is what happens. But I was like, so we're not going to talk about white supremacy? Like, we're not going to talk about the fact that the vast majority of these shootings, whether they are seen as political or not, if we look at the numbers, white supremacy ideology. But we don't want to do anything about that. There's no legislation that they want to bring. Every time you say white supremacy, they want to yell, oh, you're race baiting. No, I am going on facts. Like, these crimes, when we look at these mass shootings, most of them are linked to neo-Nazism or, Proud Boys or whatever. It's always some white supremacy kind of thing that's going on. It's not black folk that are going out there. It's not immigrants that are going out there. But what cities are we going into? Black cities, because we are supposedly the ones that commit all the crime. Which people are we going after? Immigrants, because allegedly it's immigrants, but we don't want to have a talk about what the numbers say, what the facts say, which is that we have a white supremacy problem in this country. So until we decide to deal with the problem, we're going to continue to have a problem.
Yeah, listen, I get it. None of it makes sense. Like, even when whoever killed Charlie Kirk, that person didn't even have a reason to do that. There's never a reason to kill somebody just for their opinion. So that's so I understand what y'all are saying when y'all saying, somebody like Jasmine don't have anything to do with that. And I'm not speaking that over you at all, but I'm just saying if you're an outspoken person with a microphone on the left, you should have your head on a swivel right now. Yeah. You just should. And you said something about freedom of speech too. I do believe everybody has freedom of speech. I don't believe you're free from the consequences of that speech. And I feel like all free speech is not free. It comes with a price, and you don't get to set that price.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what your words may do to somebody else, especially when we're talking about somebody who may be mentally ill or ain't rap too tight.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's a really good point. But like legitimately, like when we look at case law, there are people that go out and say, oh, Second Amendment, so I have no limits. I can just do whatever I want to with guns. And that's pretty much been the attitude of the right. That is not true. Same thing with the First Amendment. Like, yes, you have free speech, but even when you think about people that decide that they're going to protest, if you're going to decide that you're going to protest, say, in New York City, then you can't just be like, well, I'm about to be out in these streets and that's that. Like, usually there are parameters.
You can't yell bomb on an airplane.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Same thing, like the movie theater example that they always give. So, like, there are limitations for every single constitutional right that we have, and it's more so a balancing test, right? Like, it's like how much harm versus what you want to do as an individual, right? And granted, like we have our greatest protections, or we're supposed to have our greatest protections when it comes to the Constitution. But right now what we're seeing is a country that is saying free speech for me, but not free speech for thee, right? If you say something I don't like, that's not covered under free speech. And that's not really what free speech is about. That is one of the things that make us this unique democracy, is that you can engage in saying some of the wildest stuff ever, but like, doesn't mean that you should go out and ever say that like, oh yeah, that person should die or this person. No, like that's crossing lines. And granted, I know that you're most likely not gonna, but if you start to incite, that's where we get a lot of our incitement laws from. Because if you start to incite violence with your words, then you don't get the free speech protections.
Yeah, I think we all incite, whether we think we do or not. And what I mean by that is, I've definitely, called that regime fascist, right?
Yeah.
If you hear somebody call him Hitler, or when he calls us racist scumbags.
Yeah.
If there's some white supremacist lunatic who thinks you or me are as a racist scumbag, let me take that racist scumbag out. If there's somebody that thinks, oh, Hitler, and then they look at a lot of the actions that are going on, they're like, well, let's prevent this before 4 million people get killed. Like, so I can understand how all of it incites violence.
Yeah, no, I could see it, but as far as whether or not, what we are supposed to look at is, if you're just looking at the words by themselves and you're taking the ordinary person standard, is what we typically would say in the law. The ordinary person would not say that incites violence. But when you do say things like, these people deserve to die, that is different, right? That is different from literally just teaching somebody history, right? And it's one of the things that we've seen with their snowflake theology, right? Around history, right? It's like, oh, no. We don't want people to know that slavery was bad. Well, just imagine how my ancestors felt going through it, right? I mean, just like, what are we talking about, right? But you should know. You should know why you shouldn't make jokes. And granted, you've got free speech or whatever, but you shouldn't be making jokes about enslaving people. Because like literally like there's a real history that is connected to that. But like this idea of like, oh, well, somebody gonna go out and kill somebody for like, that is not your ordinary person's standard. Like it needs to be where if we're looking at a blank slate, just a normal person, it should be the very clear things. Like, I mean, what we saw happen on January 6th, and it was propagated by the now re-elected president of the United States. He incited a violent mob, period. And he was indicted for doing so. Unfortunately, he never got his day in court for all of us, because I think. Who fault that is? Well, I didn't. We not pointing fingers. I just said.
President Biden and Merrick Garland. I want to ask you about that too, right? What did you think about Kamala Harris? Former VP Kamala Harris, her excerpt from her book where she finally speaks her truth in regards to the Biden administration and how they wouldn't come to her defense, how they helped to spread negative narratives about her. What did you think of that?
Couldn't drop her resume.
So that day I was at work, so I haven't read through it, and that was the Charlie Kirk day as well. So I was stuck for till like 9 p.m. at the Capitol. I will say this, as a national co-chair on that campaign. When I had an opportunity to talk to the vice president, as frankly and honestly as I typically speak, maybe with even more frankness on some of my cuss words, that is how I would talk to the VP. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of people that did not understand why and how the VP ever picked me as a national co-chair. It is not every day that you have a Black woman freshman that ends up becoming a national co-chair on what truly was a historic campaign, no matter what the results ultimately were. And one of the reasons is because she never had to worry about me backstabbing her, like being 10 toes down, like telling her. And I wasn't one of those surrogates that's like, oh, send me and have me do a rally. No. I'm trying to get in the streets. I'm trying to talk to the real people.
Right.
And then I would try to report back to her and let her know, like, yo, this is what I'm feeling in the streets, that kind of stuff. Because I never wanted anything other than her to win, because that was a win for the American people. Mm-hmm. And I think that people took for granted how perceptive she was of who it was that literally her riders were. It is one of the reasons that we saw Secretary Fudge being elevated as one of her national co-chairs. Another person that when the history books are written, there will be so many Black women electeds that will talk about kind of all that Secretary Fudge has been to so many of us behind the scenes. So I will say that I am not surprised, because, you know, there were a lot of things that were going on. Number one, we had those that were trying to push Biden out, but they weren't just trying to push Biden out, they were trying to push her out. Mm-hmm. They didn't want her to become the nominee. They had their pick in mind, and it wasn't either one of them. And, you know, I remember tweeting when it was actually decent to do. I remember tweeting out and saying that I would only go and bust my ass for one candidate, and that would be the vice president. If they came up with anybody else, God bless them, good luck. But I'm not about to run myself ragged when y'all decided to kind of do this. So there's so many layers to what it is to be in elected office, and it is always tough to build a team of trust. It is what matters most. You can teach somebody the skills, but you can't teach anybody to literally have your back. And politics is such an ugly game that it is so important. And so the bigger your team gets, the more difficult it is. Now, do I believe that the president himself did anything against the vice president? I don't. Everything that I know about Joe Biden, as well as the VP, she never backstabbed him to be like, oh, this is my chance, let me try to get it. Nothing like that. And you can't have a vice president that's always gunning for your job. You have to have a vice president that is like riding out and gonna do the things. And so I think between the two of them, while I've not read her book at this point in time, I feel absolutely confident that she never backstabbed him and he never backstabbed her. But when it comes to staff, life gets real tricky.
She said in the episode that the Atlantic dropped that she found out that the staff was like adding to like the moment. So like, for instance, she would like work on something super important for the country, but instead they would lean into, remember when she they said that she like tried to fake the French accent, and that was like a whole thing. She said that she felt like they would amplify moments like that so people didn't understand how she was really in the rooms, really fighting for different things. And basically it would like turn people away from her resume, or you just wouldn't know how important she was to her position.
Yeah, I will say that so there's a group of Black women in Congress. We're a little younger. We have a Signal chat. And we have that safe space, not only our chat, but we get together, we do dinners, that kind of stuff. Because it is, you know, people see us and they see us being challenged from the outside. They see the right challenging us and that kind of stuff. But people don't understand how much people within our own orbit try to undermine us, including staff, right? Like, they forget that your name is on the door. Like, there is a culture in DC, even when we look at the House and that kind of stuff. Like, you have people that have been there forever. Like, when I came in, people were like, how you gonna bring this person? I was like, because my name is on the door. I brought people that I knew had my back. I brought kids that had interned with me, and they were like, they have no Hill experience. I was like, yeah, that's fine, they smart. And literally, I mean, my kids get tapped all the time. Literally, one of them took a really big, good job. And he was sad. He was crying when he left me. But I was like, this is a great opportunity. And I still have a number. I mean, kids that graduated college at 20 that I had as interns when I was in the State House that are now still with me on the Hill. And that is because I didn't need people coming in thinking that just because they heal people, they gonna run me. But that is how the Hill is run, where you have these staffers, especially when it comes to Black women, where they try to undermine us at every turn. And you can even be the vice president of the United States and run into staff that for whatever reason believe that they have the right to undermine you, and they will, and they play you because you're in a political position. So there's only so much that you can do, because it's not like running your own shop or whatever that ain't got nothing to do with politics, where it's just about profit. Like, your profit is people and the people's perception of you. And if the people closest to you are saying things that are contradictory to who you are, like, it's a whole game. And so it's very difficult. And truly, I remember the same group of women that I'm talking about, the vice president would bring us over to her home, to the vice president's residence, and we would sit down and we would have dinner. And it would be those moments that we could talk about, like, what some of our challenges are beyond just the normal that goes into the job. It is what Black women face kind of in general in any space that they walk into that was never built to accept them.
I know there's some good keying going on at that.
That's waiting to excel, the Hill version.
Yeah, we did.
So to your point, because when I read the excerpt, I understood 100%. Even before she came out and said all these things, I could look at her and see, because I've been in the shoes of what's happening. I haven't been vice president, but I've been a Black woman in a space, right? But why did she not say something before now? We were all there with her. Like, we would have rolled.
We actually weren't.
We were to a certain extent. I
rocked with the VP, but a lot of people were not.
Maybe because of my family
Black
and my household.
A lot of revisionist history when it comes to the VP. I was out there campaigning with her back in 2020.
But you guys don't.
And they handed me my ass.
But you don't feel like when we did the whole Biden put her on the ticket thing, there was a shift in support for her?
Not necessarily amongst Black people. Not necessarily amongst Black people. So I'll be honest. And I think that, number one, again, I was a fierce defender of hers before she was ever the nominee or whatever. But I can remember where people are like, where is she? What's she doing? She ain't doing nothing, right? Because when people went out and voted, there were so many people that were voting for her. Like, they voted, they're like, oh, Joe's there. But we out, we voted for Kamala.
It did shift.
But I think that was when they ran as a ticket. I do think that she had a lot more Black support when Joe Biden was running as president and she was running as vice president. But again, they decided that she would have to meet a higher standard than the average vice president. That's what they decided, because people are like, well, I voted for you. So they're like, where is she? Right? Not understanding the role of the vice president, because ain't nobody. How many people went out there and was like, I'm voting for J.D. Vance?
Nobody.
They weren't saying I'm voting for J.D. Vance. They were voting for Trump. J.D. Vance just kind of happened to be there, right? Like, and that's typically how we do our tickets. Is you usually have the star up here, and then you never want anybody who's going to outshine you. But literally, I think that they approached it more so as a partnership, because when Joe Biden served as vice president to Obama, it was more like a partnership. And I think people just wanted to see her more, because I would hear it and I'm like, well, tell me what Dick Cheney was doing. Like, tell me. And I'd be like, name 5 other vice presidents, right? Like, and if you couldn't, then I'm like, y'all are putting more on her than the role actually allows for. Now, I do think that we also have to be cognizant of that when we walk into spaces that typically we're not in. We do have to do more. It's unfortunate. It's not right, but we do. And so, like, it was only within that 107 days that people could start to see, no, this is who she is. And I think a few more days and we would have been fine. But 107 days, a little over 3 months to run any campaign is wild, let alone to run a presidential. And she also was forced into an infrastructure that was built for Joe Biden. And she ain't Joe Biden, right? But like, you can't build your own presidential infrastructure in that short amount of time. So you try to like plug and play somebody that like that's not who she was. And you would see as time was going on, she was really hitting her own stride, right? That fit her versus her kind of being forced into this space. But I don't think that coming out and saying, well, staff did this or that, then they would have looked at her and they would have said she was weak. They would have said, oh, she's complaining, she's giving excuses. Those are the things they would have done. A lot of times it's a lot of stuff that goes on with us. But like us saying something is not going to get us anywhere. Like we literally just got to be like, whatever. Because we always have more obstacles. No matter who we are, no matter what we're doing, we're always going to have more obstacles. And ain't nobody trying to hear that you couldn't get it done because of the obstacles. Like they just look at you and to me, it would have played into this persona of the Democrats is that we're weak. And so I think like doing a tell-all and, dissecting what happened for the people, giving people like the inside view afterwards is fine. But I think in that moment, when you're looking for the commander-in-chief of the biggest, best, strongest nation in the world, complaining about staff is not going to instill that type of confidence.
Yeah, I don't think she should have complained about staff. And you're right about everything you're saying in regards to the VP, but times changed, and they changed a lot. So for somebody like the vice president, I would have liked to see, and I told her she should do this, I would have liked to see her out the way you see J.D. Vance out, meaning you see J.D. Vance on these Sunday morning news shows all the time. You see J.D. Vance popping up on these podcasts. Everybody knew Joe Biden wasn't going to be a popular president. All his polling numbers always showed it. So being that you're number 2 on the ticket, I know they don't want you to, but you should be thinking about your future. And I think that if she would have did that early on, like just calling Breakfast Club every now and then, popping up on DL Hughley show, showing up on these Sunday morning news shows. So when they know you, God forbid it's something that would have happened to Biden, which it did. He ended up having to step down. They would have known you already. Yeah. So you wouldn't have had to try to get people to get to know you in 107 days.
Yeah, no, stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. I agree.
And you do a phenomenal job of just being out there, not because you're seeking to be out there. You just got that type of magnetic personality. And when you pop up on camera, you pop.
But you're honest. And you're straight to it. And I think that was the thing. Like I'm not stop saying we. I was waiting for Kamala to be just, here's like, we're seeing things. What's up? Like, you're like our person. And that didn't happen. Like even your Twitter account. Like when things happen, I go to your Twitter because you talk about it so regular and you're straight to it. I felt like we didn't have that with her. Like now she's using the words like reckless or, ambition and ego were Biden's issue and things like that. But we all could have had that conversation before.
Y'all don't know how these handlers are. Like you could not imagine the amount of pushback I do, like internally. Like I would have staff, again, this goes down to staff and handlers and consultants, right? So I would have staff, especially when I started, like, because my tweets, if it's Jasmine for us, it's me. It ain't nobody else. It's staff on my other accounts, right? But it is me when it's Jasmine for us. So when I first started doing stuff, I had staff that were like, you can't do that. I said, I'm sorry. Why can't I? I can do whatever I want to do, right? Like, and so I pushed back. I remember even other colleagues after Marjorie and I had our situation, they were like, well, we don't know if you should have did that. That's cool. Like, ultimately, like, if the people decide that they don't want to reelect me because I decide that I'm going to show up and be myself and I'm going to be in defense of myself, which I don't know why you could be convinced that I would fight for you, somebody that maybe I've never met because I've not met every single one of my voters, when I won't even defend myself. Now, if y'all decide that that's not the representation that you want, that is perfectly fine with me. Right. Because my life is a lot simpler when I'm not in politics. Like, that is okay. Like, I am okay with it. But what happens is people say, well, the only way you're going to get here is if you do this or that. I can tell you that there is no consultant that ever would have approached me or said that I should be who I am and thought that I would become one of the top fundraising members of the House. Period. Like, they would never have said, be who I am. And so, again, this goes into the fact that she plugged into an apparatus that was not built for her, right? You're talking about Joe Biden, who had been an elected official since he was in his 20s. You're talking about an older white man. You're talking about something completely different in the standards that are going to be set versus a black woman and a woman just in general. So having that apparatus of what Joe Biden can do or should do, it is not the same as Kamala and what she should do because she's going to have to connect on another way right? Like they are going to, black people specifically are going to expect different of you. It's not right? They're both running for president. But if you've got, a white man running for president, there's going to be like, well, I don't expect him to really understand all of our black issues or necessarily talk about reparations, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's what they're going to do. Now they running for the same daggone position, right? But when it comes to a black person or a woman, then they are going to expect you to lean in on some of those things. And so you've got to have an apparatus or even understanding the media, right? Understanding what media should be done. Like, ain't nobody expecting Joe Biden to show up on the Breakfast Club. Like, they're not, right? But if you're going to be a black candidate that I'm looking at and I'm saying, yes, she for real, she one of us, then she gonna have to show up on the Breakfast Club. Like, it's those little things about, again, that system that is set up. And it's like, this ain't for you, right? Like, because, again, you talk about he's going on the Sunday morning shows and this and that, he doing a random podcast or whatever, like the spaces, and you started to see her doing more of it towards the end. You saw her on the different podcasts and that kind of stuff. But that was when she started to say, yo, this ain't working. Like, I got to flip it this way, right?
She did say that at some point.
In my mind, she did.
Okay.
I can't say 100%, like but I do feel like she was going through what we typically go through behind the scenes where we're pushing back. And it was one of those reasons that I always wanted to get to her, because I don't want to come to you afterwards and be like, well, you should have did this and you should have did that. Like, you put me on the team to talk to you about what I'm getting from the streets now so that we can win. Like, I literally wanted her to win because I did believe that Project 2025 was real. I did believe that this was going to cause so much more harm, specifically to black people, than anybody else. I did believe that this guy was going to be bad for our economy. I truly believe this. This wasn't me drinking some Kool-Aid. This was me reading. This was me listening as he was talking about the tariffs. This was me understanding how terrible his tariffs were before for us. This is me understanding trade. This is me understanding foreign relations. I knew that this guy was going to be a disaster. So I needed her to win, not just for me, but for the people that I represent. And frankly, for a lot of people that voted for this guy to come in and hurt them. I was fighting for them too.
This is why I'm actually glad about what she wrote in her book. And it's not even about her or her political future. It's about the future of the Democratic Party. Because at some point, whoever the future of the party is, even the now of the party, they have to tell the truth about the party, and you got to be willing to throw that old regime under the bus. You got to be able to say President Biden shouldn't have ran for a second term. You got to be able to say, if you felt like Donald Trump was a real threat to democracy, like the things you just laid out, you got to be able to say Merrick Garland dropped the ball. You got to be able to say Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer got to go. Like, you got to call a thing a thing.
He's trying to get me fired.
No, I'm just saying, Jasmine.
MAGA said I got fired.
But you can't.
Charlamagne gonna get me fired.
No, but you can't only call a thing when it's a Republican. You got to call it a thing.
No. I don't disagree with you. I think that you will not catch me on a hot mic saying some of those things that you're talking about, because it's kind of like anything else. It's like, we black, right? So you think about the fights that you have within your family. It's like in the streets, we won. But like when we go in the house, we gonna have to hash some things out. And that's what I think we have not done a good job of. Even when they decided to come after Joe Biden, it was a very public, out of the house thing. No, we needed to have some conversations as family. And that's what Democrats are bad at. Like, we don't have the family conversations. Are there people that maybe should not be seeking re-election right now in the House? Probably, right? You ain't gonna catch no names from me, okay? Probably. But I don't think that it does us any good to go out and then sow division, because the Republicans love to come in and they will exploit those divisions, right? And then all that does is make the party feel like, well, y'all ain't got your shit together, right? So I do think that we need to have these conversations, and we really do need to have them behind closed doors. And we really need to say, either we can continue to go the way that we're going, where, yes, people are upset with the Republicans, but they ain't happy with us either. Or we can say, we've got to figure out how we're going to fix this. And what is working? What do people respond to, right? Like, we know that there's the drama about the New York mayoral and all that is going on, right? We know that there are certain figures that the old guard is not necessarily the most comfortable with, right?
Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, Governor Kathy Hochul do not want to endorse Governor Mayor candidate Mondani. Yes.
Okay.
And we know the reasons why.
And I don't live in New York. I'm gonna mind my good Texas business. But I'll say though that like there really needs to be a conversation, even if there's not. Like it's like a matter of like have the conversations taking place behind closed doors about the concerns, about the questions, about the fears. Do I believe that any of these persons that you just named believe that Mondani is actually a bad candidate? I don't. I don't think in my heart of hearts that they actually believe that he is a bad candidate. I really don't.
But one of their main lobbyists hasn't stamped him yet, and that's AIPAC. So, until AIPAC says, you know what, he's good with us, they won't endorse him.
I don't know. I'm not saying that is or isn't. I will say, though, that another thing that Republicans do is they love to find someone that they feel like is very polarizing, and then they bring that person onto other candidates. And so, for instance, for a long time, they were doing all these mailers and all these ads with Nancy Pelosi because they had driven down Pelosi's like favorabilities amongst kind of independents and some other folk, right? And so then they would put, it don't matter what the race is, they just gonna be another Nancy Pelosi. Like that's what they would do, right? And I do know that, those types of things kind of seep in. They used to do it with AOC all the time. I think that AOC's favorabilities have obviously shifted because they are not using AOC anymore, right? They have yet to use me, but we know that Fox News spends a lot of time trying to drive down my favorabilities by running like junk stories and that kind of stuff. Because literally Republicans will walk up to me, introduce themselves, tell me how much they love me, and make sure that they know or that they tell me that they're a Republican. And so I think that there is something to be said for when people are like, how did the United States vote for Obama and vote for Trump? Like, it's like, what is happening, right? But I think what people fail to realize is that both of them had the ability to bring in people that normally don't participate in politics. And that is how you find a winner. A winner is somebody that can bring in people that normally don't participate in politics. So what is it that attracts somebody that normally doesn't participate in politics? Usually it's them believing that they're authentic, even if it's a con man, right? Like it's like, you know what? I relate to that person. That person is speaking to me. That person is doing something that other politicians don't do. They don't sound like a broken record. And so I think ultimately what we will see is if we have like a generic run-of-the-mill Republican, which I would say J.D. Vance is pretty much that, if that. But then we have an exciting candidate that is running on the Democrat. Actually, I think the country is going to be so torn up that the Democrats are going to win, because that's historically what happens. If the Republicans tear it up enough, then no matter who on the other side, we win. Like, no matter who it is, we just win.
I don't think the party, at least in my lifetime, I've never seen the Democratic Party in this much disarray, though.
I agree. I agree. I think part of it is, though, that like people are saying that the Democrats have failed to figure out how to fight back. That's big. Like, we've never had this type of dysfunction on the Republican side, right? Like, we've never had it to where the Supreme Court isn't reining in, people's powers. We've never had it where Republicans, when we think back to Watergate, which, truly Nixon looks like a choir boy compared to Trump, right? In a bipartisan way, they voted to impeach him. And he just decided to resign. He's like, I ain't even finna go through this, right? We don't have that type of gumption. And so, I don't think our founders contemplated this. And truly, the Democrats are still struggling to find their ability to fight back. I think one of the reasons that Gavin Newsom has, truly attracted a lot of attention in this moment is because he's saying, I'm going to fight back. And he is showing them how ridiculous Trump is by doing tweets that are just like Trump. And Fox News got a lot of, those are immature. These are Trump tweets. Like, all he's doing is raising a mirror to you. So I think if we get on one page on what fighting back looks like, then I think that people will feel the confidence that they need to feel in this moment. But it's hard to say that, this is a dictatorship, even though we're looking at him sending troops to go in and attack Americans. Like, even though we're seeing that they are unleashing this rogue policing force that, you know, if they taught Black history, they would know about slave patrols, because when I look at what they are doing with ICE, it looks like slave patrols. And then you've got a Supreme Court that's like, yeah, you can pick them up because of how they look or how they sound.
That's crazy.
That sounds like a slave patrol. Like, that is what policing was born of. So yes, we need to teach history. And yes, we also need to talk about like why it is important for everybody to know the history. Because maybe we would have had more Latinos that would have voted for the Black woman or voted with the Black folk if they fully understood this history, because frankly, they are the targets and the victims of this. And so many of them voted for it.
We just got a couple more questions. I know you got to go. Are you losing your seat because of the redistricting in Texas?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, they moved me out of my district. On the federal level, you can run anywhere in the state. So we'll do some polling and figure out if I run in my district, Texas 30, even though I don't live there and will not be moving to the district, or if I run in Texas 33, which is where they put me, which is also a Democratic district.
Epstein files. You know that there's absolutely people on the left that will be in the Epstein files. Are you willing to throw them under the bus, even if their last name is Clinton?
I am willing to throw anyone under the bus. Absolutely. I mean, we know that every single Democrat has signed off on the discharge petition. Only 4 Republicans have signed off on the discharge petition. We need one more Republican, and we can bring this to the floor for a vote. Obviously, I serve on the Oversight Committee, and people aren't talking about the fact that the only reason we've gotten any Epstein files is because the only subcommittee in the Congress that is all Black, which is this Oversight Subcommittee on Law Enforcement, is led by Summer Lee. They were the ones that led the charge. So as MAGA complains about DEI and whatever they got to say, an all Black subcommittee is the reason that we ended up getting anything, because it was Summer's subcommittee that decided to move to subpoena, and it only took a couple of Republicans jumping on board, and they did. And that then forced Comer's hand because they had voted to do this. So I just want to give credit where credit is due, because I'm sure that's one of them things that history will forget. At the end of the day, I don't sign up or agree on anybody engaging in child sex exploitation. I don't care who you are. I don't care. I mean, and I will denounce the behaviors of anyone. And so that's why, like, I'm good. Like, whoever it is what it is.
Y'all got to go.
Yeah.
Are you a no-show diva boss? Like the New York Post reported, they said that you had staffers who said you were rude and rarely present in the office.
They tried to do that to Kamala too. She said that in her excerpt too. They tried. I feel for y'all, man.
And
they tried to do
work
that.
with, even though we see you on the Hill all the time. I mean, that's a.
You show up to work there.
I that part. They claim I don't be at work. There's probably more video footage of me working than a lot of members that have been there for a very long time. We upload everything on YouTube. We've got our clips on TikTok, IG, Facebook, everywhere. In addition to, we send out a weekly email to our constituents that has photos and lays out what we filed. It shows photos of my meetings. Listen, people can say what they want to say. And again, there is this culture of undermining Black women, and there is this culture of, you're not going to do what you want to do here. You're going to do what we tell you to do. I will tell you that I'm going to always be me. And there are staffers that, you know, they not in my office, take offense to how I show up every day. And the fact that I'm not going to conform to being just a tool of Hill staffers. And it is what it is. So until somebody want to put their name on something to potentially be sued, I really ain't got, because, you know, you can't defame somebody without facing consequences of potentially going to court, and truth will always be the defense. So if somebody wants to come forward and say what they got to say and speak their truth, I look forward to it. Until then, I don't really respond to the New York Post that also is attempting to do what we do with Black women in power, which is to basically say we ain't nothing but loud, nothing as we women or people, and it's just not true.
My last question. Do you ever get tired of being loyal to people who aren't loyal to you. Because Jasmine, I've seen them do the exact same thing to you that they do to Kamala, especially when you lost your bid to be the top Dem on the oversight panel. I've said it a million times on the radio, everywhere I go. There is nobody who should be front and center more in the Democratic Party than you right now, just because you bring the eyeballs.
Yeah.
You know how to message. Whether people like it, whether people don't like it, you know how to message.
Yeah, so I truly believe that everything happens for a reason, even the bad things or even the things that I believe made best sense. Me running for oversight was always about trying to do best by my party, by the caucus, and trying to hopefully get us into a better space with the people that we serve. But at the end of the day, if people don't want my service, they don't want my service. But if I said that I was not disappointed with how much I had given to a caucus that then felt like they reduced me to not being worth it, like, very much, it was eye-opening. And so for me, I look at it like God was trying to reveal to me and let me know, like, yo, like, you cutting for some people that ain't checking for you, right? Like, you need to recenter and rebalance yourself. And so I did decide specifically after that I was going to focus more on working with the Black faith community and making sure that they have the information that they need, making sure that they're organizing in the way that they need to organize, and really availing myself of them and making sure that I could support them with some resources. Because
You're being very humble. You raised over $4 million for the caucus. Yeah. You did over 110 trips. You gave out almost $600,000. You was the 7th highest fundraiser in the whole caucus for Q1 of this year, right?
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was in Q2 I moved up. I was even higher. So
they cool with you laboring, in the field, but they don't want you leading from at the table. Come on now.
That is what it felt like. So, I mean, listen, sometimes you have to be put into an uncomfortable position in order to move you. And so for me, it was about kind of recentering and talking to God and saying, okay, it's clear that, like, this isn't what you want me to do. So, like, where is it that you want me to go? So, we will see. Like, you just asked me about, which seat I'm running in and that kind of stuff. There are definitely those that want me to run statewide. So we're not ruling out a statewide run either. So there's just a lot of things at play, because it's like, maybe the House, maybe it's over. Maybe that was the message. Like, I don't know. We'll see what numbers look like.
Also, Senator might be a thing?
Potentially. We'll see. I mean, right now, I'm focused on the redistricting. We're in trial. We're doing those things. But, filing doesn't end until December. And so what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate. We're not going to take anything off the table, and we'll see. We know that my current Attorney General, Paxton, is a uniquely bad candidate. And, it would be the best kind of fuck you to the Republicans to specifically target my state, specifically target my district, worried about a House seat, and then I'd be able to snatch a Senate seat. So we'll see. We'll keep doing evaluations. I can tell you that, from everything that we know without having done our own polling, it is definitely within striking range. So we'll see.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, man, please pray for Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett always, and you just be safe out here.
All right.
We appreciate you.
Good to see you.
It's The Breakfast Club.
Hold up. Every day I wake up, wake your ass up.
The Breakfast Club.
Y'all finished or y'all done?